At my daughter's beach wedding, just as the sun dipped into the waves off the Cape Cod coast, her new husband leaned toward me with a smirk. $50,000 for the luxury of being part of this celebration. Otherwise, you vanish from our lives forever. I blinked, stunned by the coldness in his voice. Before I could respond, my daughter, my Rachel, sipped her champagne and added with a casual shrug, or, enjoy the peace and quiet of a retirement home. Your choice, Mom. They stood there like two flawless porcelain figures, glamorous, confident, and unshakably entitled. I smiled, lifted my glass, and whispered, "You forgot one thing." For a brief moment, the air seemed to still. A gust of sea breeze lifted the edge of my shawl, and the sound of crashing waves filled the quiet that followed. Their faces paled, not dramatically, not instantly, but just enough to catch the flicker of doubt, the edge of fear. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't argued. But the certainty in my voice had landed, and they knew it. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for months. I hadn't come to the wedding unarmed, ready for humiliation. I came knowing exactly who they had become and what they thought of me. They believed I was weak, alone, disposable. They forgot that I had rebuilt my life from nothing before, and that I could dismantle theirs without raising my voice. You forgot one thing, I repeated softly, letting the wind carry my words out to sea. Then I excused myself to powder my nose, leaving them frozen in place. Because the storm they had summoned had already begun. I was 28 the night I left my old life behind. Rain poured over Boston, the kind that soaked you in seconds. Our tiny apartment windows rattled with every gust of wind, but inside, it was the silence that chilled me most. My husband Tom had passed out on the couch, snoring loudly, his rage spent for now. My cheek was swollen again. In the hallway, my 4-year-old daughter stood barefoot in her pajamas, clutching a worn stuffed bunny. Her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide and resigned, too wise for her age. That look did it. Not the bruises, not the shouting, but the silence in her. She had already learned that being quiet was safer. That was the moment everything shifted. I moved quickly, almost dreamlike. I grabbed an old duffel bag and stuffed it with what little I could. Rachel's favorite clothes, some snacks, our passports, and a copy of Pride and Prejudice I'd hollowed out weeks earlier, hiding $237 in cash I'd scraped together. When I lifted Rachel into my arms, she instinctively wrapped herself around me. "Are we going on an adventure, Mommy?" she whispered. "Yes, baby," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The biggest adventure of all." We disappeared into the rainy night, boarding a bus to Dorchester, where an old high school friend had promised us a couch for a few nights. It wasn't much, but it was enough. 2 weeks later, I found a tiny apartment, one room with a bathroom barely big enough to stand in. It smelled of cabbage and cigarettes, the wallpaper peeled, and the heater clanked. But no one hit me there. No one screamed. And Rachel slept through the night. I found work at a diner, serving breakfast from 6 to 2 o'clock, then changed into a thrifted skirt and blouse to answer phones at a dentist's office from 3 to 9 o'clock. I was always exhausted, but Rachel was safe, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. That rainy night marked the real beginning of our story. Not the wedding, not the boutique, but the night I chose my daughter and myself over fear. Rachel got into Boston University on a partial scholarship. I still remember the day the acceptance letter arrived. She danced across our tiny kitchen, waving the envelope like a golden ticket. "I got in, Mom. I really got in." Her face shone with joy, pride, and the promise of the future I had always dreamed she'd have. That night, after she fell asleep, I cried. Tears of happiness, yes, but also of fear for the tuition and what the scholarship didn't cover. By morning, I had a plan. I picked up extra shifts at the diner, took evening cleaning jobs at offices in Back Bay, and worked weekends in the stockroom of a local department store. I kept going, because that's what mothers do. And Rachel? She thrived. She studied hard, made friends, and started dressing in sleek blazers and elegant heels. When she came home for visits, She shared stories of her marketing classes, group projects, and dreams of launching something big, a brand, a boutique, something elegant and modern. She spoke about it with stars in her eyes. After graduation, the call came just before midnight. I had returned home from a double shift and was about to collapse into bed. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling, "I think I found it." A storefront, small, but full of character. Exposed brick, original hardwood, big windows. "It's perfect." She was breathless. "I can see it all, the displays, the collections, the feel of it. But I need help. I need startup money." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. 97,000. The number stole my breath. That was more than I had in savings. But then I remembered the one thing I had protected all these years, my retirement fund. Modest, steady, every paycheck a little tucked away for a someday that never came. The next day, I met with Sarah Miller, my high school friend, now a paralegal at a respected Boston law firm. Years ago, I had let her sleep on my pull-out couch when her marriage fell apart. Now, she sat across from me in a downtown office, reviewing the paperwork to liquidate my future. "You're sure about this?" she asked. "I'm sure." But Sarah wasn't done. She added something extra, partnership papers. "You'll retain 51% ownership," she said firmly. "Rachel will be the face, but you'll be protected." I hesitated, but she insisted. "This isn't about control. It's about security for both of you." Rachel signed the papers without reading them. She was too busy dreaming. 3 months later, her boutique opened with cheese platters, plastic flutes of sparkling wine, and stacks of handwritten invitations. I stood in the back, watching her shine. The boutique was beautiful. She was radiant. I was happy to be her silent partner because this was the dream. Ours. For a while, everything seemed to fall into place. The boutique grew slowly at first. Sales were modest. Rent was tight. Rachel worked 14-hour days, arranging window displays late into the night, coordinating with designers, running her social media, answering emails herself. I helped quietly, restocking inventory after hours, keeping the books clean, covering unexpected costs without ever mentioning them. Then everything changed. A college friend, Elisa, one of those rising lifestyle influencers, stopped by. She tried on a cobalt blue sheath dress and posted a photo on Instagram with a flattering caption. The next morning, a line formed outside the store. By that afternoon, Rachel had sold out. Suddenly, Rachel's closet was on the map. Local magazines feature her. Other influencers visited. Customers came from across the city. Within 6 months, she was eyeing the vacant space next door. I watched with joy swelling in my chest. I only visited after closing. That was my choice. I knew I didn't belong in her new, elegant world. The gleaming shelves, minimalist decor, polished customers, and designer heels. I arrived late, in the same old sweaters and sneakers I'd worn for years, careful not to disrupt anything. "Mom, you should come during the day sometime," Rachel said casually. "Your world, not mine." I smiled. I'm just happy to see it grow. But one night, I arrived earlier than usual, holding takeout in a paper bag to surprise her. She was at the counter, chatting with a customer. I stood quietly among the racks, listening. "You've created something amazing," the woman said. "How did you pull this off right out of college?" Rachel smiled, confident and glowing. "I built it from nothing," she said. "Just hard work and a clear vision. No one handed me anything." Her voice was light, but her words cut like knives. "I built it from nothing. Nobody handed me anything." I turned and left without a word, the bag of food still clutched in my hand. Outside, I leaned against the brick wall, trying to steady my breath. That night, I realized I had disappeared from her story. Quietly, inadvertently, no. I was no longer part of her narrative. I was just the shadow behind the light. A few months later, Rachel met David Harrington. She introduced him briefly at a Chamber of Commerce gala, where she was honored as one of Boston's top entrepreneurs under 30. I went with her, stepping into her public world for the first time in years, wearing a clearance rack navy dress and hair done at a salon. David was polished, wealthy, confident, the kind of man whose voice alone commanded attention. He liked power, and Rachel, in her sleek heels and boutique success, looked like a perfect match for his world. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Dinners were canceled. Calls went unanswered. She was swept up in his life. Rooftop parties, wine tastings, Hamptons vacations. When we did speak, David's name came up constantly. David thinks the boutique could go global. David's parents know investors. David's teaching me how real businesses scale. He spoke in buzzwords, and she repeated them like scripture. Then one day, I learned about their engagement from Facebook. A photo, her hand on his chest, a diamond the size of a grape sparkling in the sun. I said yes to forever, the caption read. No phone call. No warning. I called her that night. Oh, Mom, she said, breathless with excitement. I was going to tell you. We've been celebrating. Isn't it amazing? Amazing wasn't the word I had in mind. 2 days later, I received a message that wasn't meant for me. It was a screenshot from David to Rachel. Your mom can't sit with my family at the dinner. My parents would be horrified. Put her at the vendor table. I stared at the screen, waiting for her reply, waiting for her to stand up for me. But nothing came. Then, 7 minutes later, another message arrived, sent directly to me. Mom, can you believe the florist wants $1,200 for eucalyptus branches? This wedding is so stressful. That night, I stopped by her apartment unannounced. She wasn't home, but her laptop was open on the kitchen counter. There it was, a tab labeled FMA Management, a full strategy document, bullet points detailing how to keep me out of sight during key moments, how to extract maximum financial support while minimizing my visibility. A comment from David read, after the wedding, it'll be easier to create distance. I closed the laptop and stood in silence. They weren't just forgetting me. They were planning to use me and discard me. That was when I called Sarah. I need you, I said. And I need you not to ask questions yet. Sarah didn't hesitate. The next day, we met in her home office, a room crowded with legal pads, file folders, and coffee mugs, looking more like a war room than anything else. If I activate my majority ownership, I asked, what does that actually allow me to do? Sarah looked me in the eyes. It means you can initiate a full audit, freeze the business accounts, revoke unauthorized contracts, and, if necessary, take back control of operations. I nodded. But I won't move unless they give me a reason, I added. She raised an eyebrow. What will the trigger be?
I didn't answer then.
But I knew. And the trigger came on Rachel's wedding day, under strings of fairy lights on that Cape Cod beach, soft jazz drifting from rented speakers. David turned to me, drink in hand, smiling with a polish that was too practiced to be genuine. $50,000, pay it or vanish forever. And Rachel, in her custom white gown, echoed him with a casual tone sharper than any scream, or enjoy your solitude in a retirement home. That was the moment, the one they never saw coming. I lifted my glass slowly, savoring the bitter champagne, and whispered the words I had rehearsed for weeks. You forgot one thing. Their smirks faltered. The flicker of fear in their eyes was brief, but it was there, and it was all I needed. I need to powder my nose, I said lightly, then walked away, heels clicking on stone, my heart calm for the first time in years. Not out of revenge, but because the moment had arrived. The signal was ready, and so was I. I didn't go to the restroom. Instead, I walked past the marble-floored corridor, across the deck, and down the narrow wooden boardwalk that curved between the dunes. There, tucked near a small aloe plant facing the ocean, I sat on a weathered bench and pulled out my phone. The sun was setting, casting gold over the waves. I typed one sentence. Sand castle time. Within moments, Sarah replied, Understood. Package is delivering now. Legal team standing by. Are you okay? I stared at the horizon for a long beat, then responded. I will be. 7 minutes. That's how long I stayed on that bench. Just long enough to release the last thread of hope that my daughter would choose love over image, truth over performance. Then I stood, brushed the sand from my shoes, and returned toward the reception, this time along the outer path, unseen. The unraveling had already begun. The wedding coordinator approached David's parents first, handing them a sealed envelope with calm professionalism. "This was delivered for you, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington." Similar scenes played out at tables across the venue. Every envelope went to someone who had unknowingly invested in Rachel's closet under David's guidance. Inside each was a legal notice, immediate audit, notification of asset freeze, and Sarah's team's detailed report of financial irregularities and unauthorized actions. Concern spread quickly. David's father was the first to react. His face darkened as he read, his napkin slipping to the floor. He rose abruptly and stormed across the venue, eyes blazing.
Meanwhile, phones buzzed.
Rachel's company email, now under my control, sent automated messages to all vendors, clients, and board members. Subject: immediate business hold pending legal review. I stepped out of the shadows, walking along the edge of the gathering. David argued in low, urgent tones with his father. Rachel froze, holding her champagne like a shield, her face pale beneath her makeup. Then she saw me. "Mom." She rushed over, panic rising. "What's happening?" "Everyone's getting these insane emails about the boutique." I looked her in the eye. "Not insane," I said evenly. "Accurate. I'm exercising my rights as majority owner." David appeared beside her, jaw clenched, his polished facade gone. "What have you done?"
He hissed.
"I've protected my investment," I replied calmly. "Did you think I wouldn't notice the unauthorized investors? The missing funds?" Rachel's eyes darted. "Mom, we can explain. Please." "It was just temporary. We were going to pay it back to fund David's side project." I said, "A real estate venture he wasn't confident enough to pitch to his own parents, so he funneled money from the boutique instead." David's face drained of color. Across the lawn, his father was now confronting another couple holding an envelope. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," David said through clenched teeth. "My family. Is that why your father looks ready to disown you?" I asked, nodding toward the man. "I wonder how he feels about you using a boutique as a personal piggy bank." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Mom," she whispered, desperate. "You have to fix this, please. Everything we've worked for." I cut her off gently. "Everything I worked for." She reached for me. "I'm your daughter, your only child. You can't do this to me." I paused. That old instinct to protect, to forgive, stirred one last time. But then I remembered the spreadsheets, the vendor table, the silence after betrayal. "I already did," I said softly. "You showed me what I meant to you. I just finally believed it." David's phone rang. Rachel's buzzed again. Emails, legal notices, repercussions, they spiraled into panic. I turned and walked away. Through the chaos, the whispers, the shame that no longer belonged to me, my heels clicked across the wooden deck, steady, calm, not angry, not broken, just done. I left the reception without another glance. At the edge of the property, I slipped off my heels and stepped onto the cool sand, letting the ocean breeze wash over me. With every step away from that glittering disaster, I felt lighter, freer. 3 miles down the beach, Sarah waited in her gray sedan, engine quietly running. She didn't ask questions, just smiled and opened the passenger door. We drove in silence for a while, the coast blurring past in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to look back. I already knew what I was leaving behind. Not just a wedding, not just a betrayal, but a lifetime of being valued only for what I could give. Now, I was choosing something else. In a quiet town north of the city, a new storefront awaited, modest, untouched mine. I would open something small, simple, built not on sacrifice but on joy, not for anyone else's validation, just for me. Let Rachel have her spotlight. Let David rebuild his image. I had no revenge to save her, only peace to protect. For the first time in decades, I wasn't someone's mother, someone's backup plan, someone's savings account. I was just me, and that was finally enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Have you ever had to walk away to find peace? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you love stories of quiet strength and redemption, subscribe for more. We're just getting started.